The U.S. government maintains a 650,000 square foot underground city carved into Raven Rock Mountain, a facility so secretive that most Americans have never heard of it. This is just one of dozens of similar installations worldwide, built using billions in classified spending. While official statements claim these are Cold War relics, financial records tell a different story. Government spending on these facilities has increased dramatically in the last decade. Today we're exposing why the wealthy and powerful are quietly preparing for specific disasters while publicly downplaying these same threats. Have you ever wondered why billionaires are suddenly spending millions on underground bunkers? The answer might shock you. While most of us struggle with rising rent prices, the ultra-wealthy are dropping astronomical sums on luxury doomsday shelters, and they're not just buying them. They're racing to get them. The luxury bunker market has exploded in recent years. Take the survival condo project in Kansas, where a former Atlas missile silo has been converted into luxury apartments, selling for $4.5 million each. These aren't your grandfather's fallout shelters. We're talking underground complexes with swimming pools, home theaters, rock climbing walls, and even hydroponic gardens. One Texas-based company, Rising S Bunkers, reported a 700% increase in sales since 2016, with their premium models fetching upwards of $8 million. What's particularly interesting is how quickly these properties get snatched up. Real estate agents specializing in this niche market report that luxury bunkers often sell within days of being listed, sometimes even before they formally hit the market. This has created a secretive waitlist economy, where the ultra-wealthy are willing to put down six-figure deposits just to reserve a spot in line. One bunker developer in South Dakota mentioned they have a 3-year waiting list, despite charging $3 million for basic units. When billionaires are willing to wait years and pay millions, sight unseen, it suggests they're preparing for something specific, not just following a luxury trend. Looking at the real estate listings is equally revealing. In Montana, underground shelters with only basic amenities. We're talking simple bedrooms, minimal kitchens, and standard air filtration, are selling for nearly $1 million. These properties don't offer marble countertops or infinity pools. The value clearly isn't in the amenities or location. It's in what these structures protect against. The features these billionaires request tell us even more. Most luxury bunkers now include sophisticated grow rooms for fresh food production, capable of operating completely off-grid for years. Weapon storage areas with reinforced doors are standard. But it's the air filtration systems that really raise eyebrows. Many are specifically designed to handle nuclear fallout, biological agents, and chemical attacks. One bunker architect mentioned that clients increasingly request CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological nuclear filtration systems that previously were only used in military installations. Geographic patterns of these purchases are equally telling. Analysis of luxury bunker sales shows clusters in very specific regions, primarily in the Mountain West at elevations between 5,000 to 7,000 feet, and notably distant from coastal areas. New Zealand has become particularly popular among Silicon Valley executives, with Peter Thiel famously purchasing a 477-acre estate there, complete with a panic room. When the world's smartest people with access to incredible data are all buying in the same locations, that's not coincidence, that's pattern. Perhaps most revealing is the contradiction between what these elites say publicly versus what they do privately. The same tech billionaires who tweet about how humanity's future has never been brighter are simultaneously building elaborate escape hatches. The same Wall Street executives who tell investors to stay calm are quietly converting portions of their portfolios to physical assets stored in private vaults. The same political figures who downplay climate concerns own property in carefully selected elevation zones. So what do they know that we don't? These aren't people making decisions based on YouTube conspiracy videos. These are individuals with access to the world's best data analysts, private intelligence networks, and often government connections. Their financial advisors manage billions and have incentives to identify threats before they become obvious. Many employ former intelligence officers as security consultants, who bring their classified knowledge and risk assessment skills into the private sector. The conclusion seems inescapable. The ultra-wealthy aren't building these bunkers. Because of generalized anxiety, they're preparing for specific disaster scenarios. Their unique information networks have identified as credible threats, whether it's accelerated climate collapse, pandemic risks, economic meltdowns, or geopolitical instability. Their actions speak louder than their reassuring public statements. The wealthy aren't the only ones with escape plans. The government has been hiding something massive right under our noses. What if the same officials telling us everything's fine have spent $36 billion upgrading a secret mountain complex that can sustain thousands through catastrophic events? The paper trail of these renovations tells a story they never wanted you to see. Welcome to Raven Rock Mountain Complex, Site R as insiders call it, a sprawling 650,000 square foot underground city, carved inside a mountain near Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania. This isn't some modest bunker. It's a fully functioning subterranean metropolis, complete with its own power plant, water reservoirs, hospital facilities, and even a chapel. But here's the fascinating part. While its existence isn't classified, almost everything happening inside absolutely is the official story. Raven Rock is just an aging Cold War relic, a historical curiosity from a bygone era of nuclear tensions. Yet financial records tell a completely different tale. Between 2007 and 2023, appropriations documents reveal the Department of Defense allocated $36 billion, specifically for continuity of government facilities upgrades. With Raven Rock receiving the lion's share of these funds, why pour billions into a supposedly outdated facility? Unless you're preparing it for something very real and potentially imminent. Let's look at what declassified documents actually tell us about this facility. Completed in 1953, Raven Rock originally housed 3 separate underground buildings, each 5 stories tall, connected by tunnels and protected by massive blast doors. Today, those original structures have expanded to include at least 7 separate command centers, a sophisticated communications hub, capable of maintaining contact with military assets worldwide, and infrastructure to support 5,000 personnel. During extended operations, the site contains over 100,000 feet of phone lines and enough diesel generators to power a small city. What's particularly telling is the Pentagon's unusual 2007 directive, making it illegal to photograph or document the facility in any way. Even mentioning specific security features became a federal offense. For a supposedly legacy installation from the 1950s, that's an extraordinary level of current secrecy. As one Defense Department official anonymously shared, "We don't maintain those levels of security protocols for museum pieces." The activity at Raven Rock spiked dramatically. After September 11, 2001, former Vice President Dick Cheney famously used the facility as one of his undisclosed locations during that crisis. But what's less known is how the complex has become home to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency's Operations Center, the military unit responsible for countering weapons of mass destruction. Their presence wasn't a temporary response to 9/11. They've been continuously expanding their operations there. For over 2 decades, local residents near the mountain have noticed patterns that don't match the dormant, relic narrative. Sarah Keller, who's lived in nearby Waynesboro for 30 years, reports the traffic patterns changed around 2010. "We started seeing convoys of unmarked trucks at odd hours. Usually between midnight and 4 a.m. construction equipment would arrive, but never during daylight." Another resident, James Morrell, whose family has owned property bordering the military reservation since the 1940s, notes, "They started buying up additional land about 15 years ago, offering 3 times market value if people would sign non-disclosure agreements about the sales." The question becomes unavoidable. Why would the government invest so heavily in a facility designed to survive catastrophic events if they truly believed such scenarios were unlikely? Pentagon budget documents accidentally declassified in 2018 revealed line items for EMP, hardened communication systems, long-term atmospheric filtration upgrades, and extended isolation capability enhancements, all completed at Raven Rock between 2013 and 2017. Most revealing are the specific modernizations. Recent upgrades include systems designed for threats that didn't exist during the Cold War, advanced biological containment units, cryptocurrency mining, servers for maintaining financial operations during economic collapse, and quantum encrypted communications that can function even if conventional satellites and internet infrastructure fail. These aren't preparations for 1960s-style nuclear exchanges. They're designed for the complex, multifaceted catastrophes of our modern era. These ultra-modern bunker features aren't built on paranoia. They're based on highly classified threat matrices that governments and billionaires use to allocate their survival resources. While politicians publicly dismiss climate concerns and pandemic warnings, their bunker upgrades tell an entirely different story. Think about it. Why would rational governments invest billions in cryptocurrency, servers and biological containment units, unless their classified threat assessments showed these protections might soon become necessary? Let me introduce you to threat matrices, the sophisticated risk assessment tools intelligence agencies and governments use to evaluate potential disasters. Unlike public-facing disaster communication, which aims to prevent panic, these internal matrices coldly calculate probability versus impact, assigning resources where the actual data suggests they're needed most. And when you analyze where the money flows, you discover which threats these organizations genuinely fear. The Department of Defense maintains what intelligence officials call the Critical Infrastructure Protection Matrix, a classified framework that ranks threats based on likelihood, potential casualties, and infrastructure damage. What's fascinating isn't just that this matrix exists, but how dramatically its assessments differ from public messaging. Consider the U.S. Geological Survey's annual budget for Yellowstone monitoring. Since 2017, it's increased by 45% according to USGS financial disclosures, with particular emphasis on deep magma chamber instruments. Yet publicly, officials maintain the supervolcano poses no immediate threat. Similarly revealing are the specialized ash filtration systems being installed at Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center, designed specifically for volcanic particulates, not nuclear fallout. Government contracts tell an equally compelling story. In 2019, FEMA awarded a $28.7 million contract to upgrade the National Response Coordination Center's biological isolation capabilities. Months before COVID-19 emerged, these upgrades included BSL-4 containment facilities, designed for pathogens far more dangerous than coronavirus. Such timing suggests authorities anticipated biological threats long before acknowledging them publicly. The Pentagon's electromagnetic pulse EMP hardening program has seen its budget triple since 2018. These aren't theoretical preparations. They're calculated responses to specific threats the Defense Intelligence Agency has identified as increasingly probable in classified assessments. One particularly telling contract involved $156 million for EMP-resistant communication systems at Site R. While public officials simultaneously dismissed concerns about electromagnetic threats as fringe theories, food storage systems in these facilities further betray the government's true threat assessment standard. FEMA guidelines recommend individuals store 72 hours of emergency supplies. Yet government facilities now maintain what they call extended sustainability capabilities. Mount Weather's recent expansion included climate-controlled food storage, designed for what internal documents describe as prolonged isolation scenarios, with supplies calculated for 5+ years of complete self-sufficiency. Perhaps most revealing are the declassified contingency plans that accidentally expose current government thinking. Operation Dark Winter, a 2001 bioterrorism simulation, outlined response protocols for a smallpox outbreak. While publicly declared obsolete, the exact same protocols appear in current bunker designs, with expanded biological containment facilities. The plans were never abandoned. They were simply classified and implemented away from public scrutiny. NASA's Near-Earth Object Observation budget has increased 380% since 2016, with particular emphasis on objects in specific size ranges, those capable of regional rather than global destruction. These aren't random allocations. They're precise responses to threats intelligence agencies have determined meet a specific probability threshold in their classified matrices. Even more telling is what former intelligence officials reveal. Michael Schauer, who spent 22 years with the CIA, stated in a rare candid interview, The disconnect between what the American public is told about certain existential threats and what is discussed in classified settings would shock most citizens. When you see billions allocated to specific protective measures, you're seeing the government's actual threat assessment, not its public posture. What's consistent across all these preparations is their specificity. These aren't generic disaster responses. They're tailored defenses against very particular scenarios. Prolonged grid failures, extreme pandemic pathogens, regional volcanic events, and financial system collapses. The pattern becomes undeniable when you analyze which threats receive funding versus which are publicly dismissed. So what's the real story here, friends? While we've been told don't worry, everything's fine, the actions of those in power tell a dramatically different tale. These massive underground facilities aren't being built on hunches. They're calculated investments based on classified information about specific threats. The money trail doesn't lie. But here's the thing. This isn't about panicking. It's about being informed. When you see billions flowing into EMP protection, biological containment, and long-term food storage systems, you're witnessing a priority list of what the informed class genuinely fears. The pattern is clear. Public reassurance paired with private preparation. So the question becomes personal. What will you do with this information? The disasters aren't theoretical. To those spending billions preparing for them, they're inevitable, enough to warrant mountains hollowed into fortresses. The divide isn't between those who fear disasters and those who don't. It's between those who know what's coming and those being kept in the dark.